So I'll call this meeting to order. It's July 7th, 2014, 7 o'clock. This is a regular meeting of the Breezy Point City Council. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would make note that our regular mayor, Joanne Weaver, is out ill tonight, and so I'm sitting in as acting mayor tonight. So our first order of business here is the consent calendar. Includes the council minutes from June 2nd and the special meeting from June 23rd. Also the claims totaling $217,721.76. And take note that on the check register there was an error which has it included as an additional sheet into the check register. We inadvertently added software support to our sanitation supplier, which I'm sure he was probably very happy about, but so we're correcting that. There's also the partial payment for the Creek Circle White Birch Drive, $444,438. Is there anything that anybody would like removed from the consent calendar packet? Commissioner Maroney?
No.
Commissioner Schmidt? No. Commissioner Williams?
No.
Okay. With that, we'll have the consent calendar approved. Next order of business is open forum. Anybody wishing to bring before the council anything, whatever interests them. It can be anything that's on the agenda tonight or not. So I'll open forum. If anybody wishes to come forward, we will do this twice. The open forum is open. Nobody appearing to the microphone, we will close open forum. Mayor and council report, as I only had about 2 hours notice that Joanne wasn't going to be here. I don't really have a whole lot. I'll go down the list. Commissioner Maroney?
I have nothing.
Okay. Commissioner Schmidt on the roads.
Yes, I do, Mayor, and that's, I wanted to bring the council up to speed on a couple of issues that we've been dealing with here at the city. First of all, I'd like to note that we're scheduled to have a roads committee meeting. What's the date on that again, Joe?
Thursday.
The what?
10th, I think.
Is that right? Because you okay with that, Mike?
Yes, Thursday the 10th.
Just checking. I'm wondering if the purpose of the meeting is to look forward and look ahead to see what and how the city might address some issues that have been lingering regarding road paving as well as maintenance. The concern I would have is that something that the council as a whole should maybe be dealing with, or should the committee, which consists of Mike and myself, and of course Joe and Dave Szymanski, and he's going to be here yet, right?
Yeah, I believe her. So, no. Yeah, July, yes, people.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's done in August.
August 8th, yeah.
Yeah, we'll be discussing items relative to that. I'm just throwing that out to see how the council wants to proceed.
Well, I know we have talked about that in the past, and I think we, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have some money available for some work on a limited basis.
We have, well, we have quite a bit of money available if we choose to use it. We freed up debt
Right, and I think the objective was to prioritize the roads and those that could have, I think, well, if I remember right, we were looking at possible both paving and sewer installation.
Yes.
On some of these, some of the
Correct.
ones that would be what we're kind of calling as low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, and one of the problems we have in a lot of these areas, there are a number of tax forfeit lots. So if you were going in with the idea of assessing these projects, you're not going to obviously get anything out of those lots where people aren't paying taxes. So the question then arises, well, does the city pick up the entire cost then for that effort, or how do you proceed?
Short term, we would have to if that's the case.
Okay.
I mean, the lots would be assessed, but as long as there's no taxpayer, we can't collect. And actually, the county won't accept an assessment on a tax forfeit on it.
That's the question I was going to ask. So,
Well, it's just problematic.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff done.
okay.
Yeah.
And that's basically what you're going to be hashing out.
Yeah, and then there's other issues that come into play. For example, under the present subdivision ordinance, if somebody's going in subdividing property for the first time in Breezy Point, they are responsible for paving the roads and installing any other infrastructure that is available that we call for. Many of these areas that we're talking about going back in and retrofitting with paved streets, installing sewer, they were subdivided years ago. The developers who were proposing it at that time skated, I guess to use the terminology, if properly, I hope. They literally put in nothing except the plat on a piece of paper. And now we're going back looking at how we address that. And again, that might be problematic with some people in town. Whether or not I as a taxpayer should be paying for, as it were, out of my property tax proceeds that go to the city, the paving of these streets. Or should they be assessed? And then we get into that discussion of the tax forfeit lots and so on. So I don't know if that's something that we want to delve into tonight, but they were concerns that I had, and we thought that we don't have a whole lot on the agenda tonight, and we want to earn our keep, so we want to stay here for at least 60 minutes.
Well, I guess what I'm looking for then is if you're having a meeting on the 10th.
Yeah.
And I think the original intent was to find out what we can do, what we should be doing now, what we could be putting off, and prioritizing that list so that we would say, these are the short-term goals and here's the longer term.
And obviously everything that the committee does is going to come back before
Correct.
the council anyhow. It's just, whether or not there would be any cost savings or time savings. They have the council meeting as a whole to discuss that, but we'll proceed as planned, and we'll bring the report back to probably at the August meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Williams? Or you don't, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, Madam Mayor, Mayor, I have a couple other things that I want to bring to the attention. I've been following with interest the progress on the White Birch 7 sewer and road project, and they're really moving along at a pretty good clip. I was out there today, and they are now cutting across White Birch Drive and will be on the site of the active adult living project, I would suspect, if they're not there now. But I'm not sure when the road project will begin, but I thought maybe Mike might have some input on that, have some information.
At the last progress meeting, they have a weekly progress meeting. Last one was last Tuesday. They were just about to reopen Creek Circle for the local traffic. it was either Wednesday or early Thursday morning that they opened it up for local traffic to get in and out to the west and beginning to work on the east segment of White Birch Drive. I expect they'll have the sanitary sewer done probably this week. You know, we just look a week ahead when we have our progress meeting, so they didn't specifically say that. But it's looking like the sewer will be probably done this week. They've done some grading of the roads, and that's going to be the activity for the next week or two will be road grading and shaping and starting to restore things. Their initial schedule was to be, in our contract, the schedule was to be substantially complete by July 31st, and final completion was the end of August. The schedule that Pratt's Excavating submitted to us pre-construction was to finish several weeks ahead of the contractual time. I think they lost about a week right off the bat with some drilling problems, but they have been on schedule after that. I don't believe they made it that week, but they have been moving right along since they got stumbled out of the gates there on that. So they'll finish probably a little bit early from what we've required. Things have been going well once they get going.
When we had limited access down in Creek Circle, did any problems develop or anything like that?
You know, one of the things we cover every week is complaints, and we had some of those from one resident right out of the bat, but it wasn't anything to do with access, it was a trespassing issue I had heard. No complaints from the residents have surfaced that I've heard. We went around before access was cut off, and we hit all the residents. I did, and Justin, other engineer, we went around, hit them all except one who wasn't home, and we talked to his neighbor and asked him to explain things, and then I think Joe will line up some golf carts for
Just one party, had some golf carts.
Okay.
we could get up and down and park up on top of the hill. I think they basically took the inconvenience in stride, it seemed like,
Okay, that's what I was basically asking, is if there's any problems or if we had any
and they did make it a
emergencies.
little bit like a Band-Aid. They tore the whole road up, and pretty much it was about a week, and he said that circle, and then they had access over before the 4th of July, restored the access.
Okay, good. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I have two more items I want to talk about if I could. Might as well stick on the White Birch 7 project. There was some discussion, brief as it was, about there's that segment of White Birch Drive. Is that actually called Antlers
It doesn't have a formal name because it's not a public street.
Street? Yeah. Where the entrance is to Antlers coming off of County 11, and that's not a public street, as Joe pointed out. I always thought of it, or still think of it, as a continuation of White Birch Drive out to County 11. I have spoken to White Birch people about the city taking that over. It seems to me only logical that should be a city street. We go through there with the plows up. In the wintertime, we're not plowing it, not maintaining it. I think just about everybody thinks it is a city street. There may be some reconfiguring of the stop signs if that were to become a city street. I think right now White Birch has a stop sign before you enter onto the private road, as it were, where I think you would want to stop it coming out of the restaurant area before it hit on before you drive onto White Birch. And of course, there would be requirements, I'm sure, as far as the White Birch people are concerned. They want to maintain that median as it is with the sign and the landscaping, gardens, and whatever. And I spoke a little bit to Joe about that, and he doesn't think it's going to be a major issue to get some type of an easement in order to maintain that median as is. I'm sure with some restrictions some ability for the city and/or the White Birch people to terminate whatever's in there, you know, if the circumstances should change, but I would think that they would not want to proceed with that becoming a city street if the city determined that the sign would have to go and that
That's
garden
why.
work would have to go.
That's why I remember, I think it didn't meet the standards,
Mhm.
and they were determined that that's what they wanted and had to have there, and so I think that's why it's not a city street.
Well, I think that, again, that's something that the council is gonna have to deal with and discuss, whether it makes sense, if there's any merit to the idea of,
Was there a liability issue with that? Do you recall, Kathy? There was something about the property and liability and that stuff. There was something why it went like that, Otto.
well, I think your reference to the standard was the one I heard, and when I talked to Scott Willer about it, he was pretty adamant that, and I think he was on the council at the time, that it should not be a city street.
Tim was always so cautious and so worried about being sued that there might have been something like that in there as well. I thought about that, about the possible damage to their, their sign, their stuff there, and
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
I think these things could be addressed, Joe, in any kind of an easement, could it not, about who's responsible for the sign and,
Well, there's a couple of ways to go about it. I mean, some cities, just as a course of practice, will have a wide right of way and they allow those signs. They want identification signs for neighborhoods and what have you. So there's a couple of ways we can go about it. Probably the easiest is to have 2 lanes and keep the center there. So they grant us an easement on either side and we just go from there.
yeah.
We can kick around a couple of ways and figure out what makes the most sense.
Question I would have, are the travel lanes wide enough? Do they meet?
Well, that's something I think we'd like to take a look at.
Yeah.
Maybe even the pavement strength to see where we're at with that too.
Does the city have any liability issues right now with them maintaining that entrance as far as emergency vehicles getting in and out, especially during the winter?
I don't know how to answer that. I mean, you can get sued for anything, for any reason. It's a private road. People use private roads all the time. So I don't really know how to answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think the key issue is it is a private, essentially it's a private driveway that White Birch Drive just happens to tee into at the far end.
Right.
There would be no impetus for White Birch to grant us, an easement there. Because emergency access can come from the other side. They don't have to go off County Road 11.
Yeah.
I mean, there is emergency access. It's maybe a little bit more inconvenient than it would be at
Further-
the time.
would be a further
but
distance, yeah.
The legal requirement is emergency access is provided. So there's really nothing pushing White Birch other than maybe good neighbor type thing to do it.
I don't think they have an objection for the city to take it over. I think they see there's probably merit in having us maintain it, plow it, et cetera.
And I'm not sure if this is still the case where a private road is being used by the public for over a long period of time and the owner never assumes control over that road. In other words, he doesn't block it off for a day and say, this is my road, then removes it.
To get a road by prescription, the city has to manage and maintain it for 7 years.
Okay.
We have not maintained.
Okay.
We've driven across it, we have not maintained.
Okay, so that, well, just by us driving across it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it's just one of those things, I think, it's worth, like Otto says, talking about, seeing if,
Mhm.
we want to go there.
Okay.
Last item I have, Mayor, is the, I think you're aware, and maybe we're not all aware, but there's that drainage pond, stormwater pond on the traditional golf course. It's right up against the, of County Road 4. And there's been some issues regarding that pond. The city facilitated several meetings with the county and White Birch to try and work something out because it had become a total eyesore. And the negotiations or discussions between White Birch and the county directly didn't seem to be going anywhere, so Joe called in representatives from White Birch and from the county. Tim Bray, the county engineer, was at both meetings, or there was just 2 meetings, I think, right, Joe? The second meeting really kind of ended abruptly, and it appeared that we kind of hit an impasse. The next thing we knew, and I think we had been skirting the major issues. For example, we felt that the integrity of the pond, in other words, its capacity to hold the engineered stormwater, had to be maintained. There was some suggestion about softening the slopes so that if they were seeded and so on, that the resort White Birch would be able to get in there with their mowing equipment in a safe manner to mow it, keep it looking decent. There had to be some excavation of some materials in the bottom of the pond. There was some questions and discussion about who's going to pay for what. And like I said, that second meeting kind of ended abruptly, and I really didn't know how things were going to go beyond that. The next thing we know, there was some work being performed out there. The slopes were softened. There was hay bales being positioned that would kind of suggest that somebody was going to throw some seed down, and it seemed to be progressing, but we found out that the county made a couple of inquiries and found out the county had not been aware that this work was beginning, and had not been informed. And then we thought that that was probably not a good thing, but the action on the part of White Birch evidently triggered a positive response from the county, because the next thing we know, the county was out there the next day doing some riprap work at the inlet to the pond. They did agree that they're going to construct the silt trap. I think that's going in this fall sometime. And Tim noted that that had to be done in order to protect the investment that White Birch was making on beautifying that pond. So bottom line is, it seems right now anyhow, unless something crazy happens, that issue has been solved, and that eyesore that was out there off of County Road 4 and in the traditional golf course has been improved immensely. We still have the issue that we see that pond was engineered for essentially 100-year rainfalls, which we've been getting with some regularity. In fact, we've been getting, I think, 500-year rainfalls with some regularity, and it's been causing some flooding issues in the golf course. Again, I think we've kind of understood, and there's an agreement being worked out between the county and White Birch about responsibility for that pond, and I suspect that will also include the ability of the White Birch people to fire up pumps when these major rain events occur that cause that pond to overflow and start to move on into lower areas in the golf course. So they did that this spring, and I think they pumped the water out onto the golf course. So the nice thing about living on the top of a sand heap, like we do here in Breezy Point, the water really does disappear quite quickly. Even when the ground is saturated, it'll still dissipate. We noticed that after I think we had a 4-inch rainfall not too far back, and that pond filled up, it was overflowing, and I'm going to say 2 to 3 hours later it was virtually almost back down to dry. So it was basically proving that the liner, when it was removed, probably assisted the golf course somewhat, because the water had some place to go at that point rather than totally flooding the course. So that seems to be under control, and again, it's an eyesore removed for the people who are traversing on County Road 4 and saw that for way too long.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Williams? Nothing? Okay. Next order.
I'm sorry. There is one more thing.
Yes, Otto.
When I met with Bray, one of the things he discussed was this upcoming study that is going to be concerning the ingress and egress issues at Eagle View Elementary off of County 11. And the school board evidently, if I understand this correctly, has agreed to help pay for this study. The county has agreed to help pay for it. And the question came up as to why isn't the city of Breezy Point participating at the table in this study. The thought process is basically focused on this study is going to evidently come up with some suggestions as to where these control points should be on County 11. This goes back to that original study, if you recall. And there was a plan that was in place that, that the administrator evidently at the time with the Pequot Lake Schools did not buy into, and things materialized as they have with a system right now of ingress and egress that the school is beginning to believe is not working safely or is not of benefit to the internal circulation of the school property. I mentioned to Tim that I would bring this again to the attention of the council. I asked him what would be the amount of money that he would expect the city to participate in. He thought it would be $1,000 or $2,000, which I think would be worth the effort for us to be there. It's going to have a major impact as to how we service the points of ingress and egress to that commercial area north of 11. The P&Z is looking at it presently. They're looking at how to run a backage road, as it were, noting that the county has indicated its desire to close off access points on County 11, which is going to require a backage road. We could just allow the county and the school district to continue. I believe that WSN, is that right, Mike, is going to be the consultant?
I think you're right.
And we could just sit back, let that take its course, and then react to where they come up with those points of ingress and egress. The county seems to be, at least Bray seems to be pushing Hunt Boulevard as one point. In other words, it would not be the road. I'm all of a sudden having the road that's presently used as the point of ingress and egress there.
Currently is Edgewater Farm.
Edgewater Farms, yeah, I'm sorry. Edgewater Farms Road does not appear to be their focus point right now. They keep looking at Hunt Boulevard. A lot of things have to happen, I think, before that happens. And then the other thing is that's a shared right-of-way, I believe, between Pequot and Breezy Point.
It's on the boundary, there's no right of way there.
That's
Okay, but it would be a shared, it could be a shared road.
Right.
And those things are problematic in and of themselves, at least in my judgment. I don't know about you, Joe, but I don't like them either. And so if that's the case, I suggested to Bray that Pequot Lakes be brought into the fray because they have a dog in the fight. So we'll see how this all pans out. I have not heard anything. Have you heard anything since that, Joe?
No, I have not. I was gonna call the superintendent and I did escape me, I didn't get there, so.
Yeah, I did. I asked him to keep you apprised. You were, I think, doing something up in Canada, fishing, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, catching walleye. So the request was that he keep you appraised of what's going on. so that we can react to it. But I wanted to, again, give the heads up to the council that this might be coming down the pike. As far as being budgeted for the study this year, I told them we weren't. So that might be something that would have to, and I'm not sure when this study is going to commence, and I don't know if Mike has any,
Haven't heard.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know if the school probably hasn't budgeted for it either.
Yeah, well, that's, would be my thought.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Just for the city